Rain tapped softly against the diner windows while one of the richest men in the city sat alone in the same corner booth he had occupied for nearly 3 years. Every night, he ordered the same black coffee, the same untouched dinner, and stared at the empty seat across from him as if he were waiting for someone who would never come back. People knew his name from magazines, television interviews, and giant company billboards across the city, but nobody knew the truth hiding behind his expensive suits and cold expression. Nobody knew that Adrian Cole had become successful after losing everything that once mattered to him. And nobody expected that the one person who would change his life forever was a tiny little girl with golden hair, worn shoes, and a heart far bigger than the world itself. Before we continue this emotional story, take 1 second to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you still believe kindness can heal broken hearts and that even the loneliest souls deserve a second chance. Your support means everything and helps stories like this reach more people around the world. The little girl sat quietly in the booth beside him for several seconds before speaking again. Her small hands rested carefully on the table while her wide innocent eyes studied the sadness on Adrian's face. She did not look afraid of him the way most people did. She simply looked concerned, like a child who had noticed something adults were too busy to see. Her soft voice finally broke the silence that had surrounded him for years. "Sir, my mommy says nobody should eat alone every night." The word struck Adrian harder than any business failure, any betrayal, or any loss he had ever experienced. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. He slowly looked at the child sitting across from him, trying to understand why her simple sentence felt heavier than all the pressure he carried inside his chest every single day. The diner itself was small and old-fashioned, hidden on a quiet street far away from the shining skyscrapers Adrian owned. The warm yellow lights reflected softly against the rainy windows, and the smell of coffee and fresh bread floated gently through the air. Most customers barely noticed him anymore. He had become part of the diner's routine, just another lonely man eating dinner in silence every evening at exactly 8 o'clock. The little girl's mother worked there as a waitress. Her name was Emily Parker. She was 28 years old, exhausted most of the time, and trying desperately to hold her life together after her husband abandoned them years earlier. She worked double shifts almost every night just to afford rent for their tiny apartment across town. Despite her struggles, she always greeted customers with kindness, though the tiredness in her eyes never truly disappeared. Emily immediately rushed toward the table when she noticed her daughter talking to Adrian. Embarrassment filled her face as she gently grabbed the little girl's hand and apologized repeatedly. Adrian surprised himself by stopping her. He quietly told Emily it was all right. The little girl smiled proudly as if she had accomplished something important. Her name was Lily, and unlike most children her age, she carried a strange understanding of loneliness. She had watched her mother cry quietly after work many nights. She had seen empty chairs at their dinner table. She understood sadness more than a child ever should. Adrian stared at his untouched meal before finally asking Lily why she thought he came there every night. The child answered honestly. She said he looked like someone waiting for happiness to return. That sentence followed Adrian all the way home that night. His penthouse apartment overlooked the glowing city skyline, but despite its luxury, the place felt colder than ever. Huge empty rooms echoed with silence. Expensive furniture sat untouched. Family photographs had been removed years ago, though faint outlines still remained on the walls where they once hung. Adrian walked slowly into his bedroom and opened a drawer he had not touched in months. Inside rested a small photograph of his late wife, Claire, holding their son Ethan beside a beach during happier times. Both of them had died in a car accident 4 years earlier while Adrian attended an important overseas business meeting he believed he could not miss. Ever since that day, guilt had consumed him completely. He buried himself in work because work was the only thing that numbed the pain. His company grew larger while his heart became emptier. Employees respected him, investors feared him, but nobody truly knew him anymore. Every relationship in his life slowly disappeared until all that remained was loneliness hidden behind wealth and success. And every night, he returned to the diner because it reminded him of simpler days before tragedy destroyed his world. The next evening, Adrian returned again. But this time, Lily was waiting for him with crayons spread across the table. She excitedly showed him drawings she had made while her mother worked. Most were simple pictures of houses, sunshine, families holding hands, and smiling faces. But one drawing stopped Adrian completely. It showed a man sitting alone at a table beside a little girl offering him half her sandwich. At the top, Lily had written in crooked handwriting, "Nobody should feel alone." Something inside Adrian began cracking open. For the first time in years, he smiled. Emily noticed it immediately. She watched quietly from across the diner, confused by the sudden change in the cold businessman who rarely spoke more than a few words. Over the following weeks, Adrian continued visiting nightly, but now he spoke with Lily almost every evening. The child talked endlessly about school, cartoons, dreams, and random thoughts only children could invent. Somehow, her innocent energy slowly brought life back into places Adrian believed were permanently dead inside him. He began eating his meals instead of leaving them untouched. He laughed occasionally. Sometimes he even stayed after closing time just listening to Lily tell stories while Emily cleaned tables. For the first time since losing his family, Adrian no longer rushed home to silence. But healing was never simple. One evening Adrian arrived earlier than usual and found Emily crying quietly in the kitchen storage room. Bills were scattered across the counter, and panic filled her eyes. Their landlord had increased rent again, and she had no idea how she would manage. Lily's school tuition was overdue, and her car had broken down the previous week. Emily quickly wiped away tears when she noticed Adrian standing nearby. Like many struggling people, she hated others seeing her weakness. Adrian offered financial help immediately. Emily refused. Not because she did not need it, but because pride was the only thing she still owned completely. That moment changed Adrian deeply. He realized strength did not always wear expensive suits or control giant companies. Sometimes strength looked like a tired single mother forcing herself to smile through impossible circumstances so her daughter would not feel afraid. Over time, Adrian began helping quietly without making Emily uncomfortable. He paid anonymous repair bills. He arranged scholarships through one of his charities without revealing his involvement. He even used company connections to help improve the diner's struggling business. Emily eventually realized what he was doing. Instead of anger, she felt gratitude mixed with confusion. Why would someone like Adrian care so much about strangers? The answer was simple. Because Lily and Emily no longer felt like strangers. Winter arrived slowly across the city. Streets filled with Christmas decorations while holiday music echoed through crowded shopping centers. But for Adrian, Christmas had become the most painful season of all. It reminded him of the last promise he made to his son before the accident. Ethan had begged Adrian not to miss Christmas Eve that year. Adrian missed it. And he never got another chance. As Christmas approached, Adrian became quieter again. The sadness returned to his eyes, heavier than before. Lily noticed immediately. One snowy evening, she handed him a folded piece of paper decorated with stickers and tiny hearts. Inside was an invitation to spend Christmas Eve dinner with her and Emily at their apartment. Adrian almost refused automatically. He had spent every Christmas alone for 4 years because being around happiness felt unbearable. But Lily looked at him with such hope that he could not say no. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in snow and freezing wind. Adrian stood outside their apartment building holding a small wrapped gift while nervousness tightened inside his chest. The building itself was old and poorly maintained. Paint peeled from walls. Hallways smelled faintly of damp wood and cheap heating. Yet when Emily opened the apartment door, warmth immediately surrounded him in ways money could never buy. The apartment was tiny but alive. Handmade decorations covered the walls. Christmas lights blinked softly around old windows. A small tree stood proudly in the corner decorated with paper ornaments Lily made herself. The smell of homemade soup and fresh bread filled the air. For the first time in years, Adrian stepped into a home instead of a house. Dinner was simple, but Adrian could not remember ever feeling more comfortable. Lily talked excitedly through the entire meal while Emily laughed softly beside her. Their happiness was imperfect, struggling, and fragile, yet somehow more genuine than the luxury Adrian surrounded himself with daily. Then something unexpected happened. Lily asked Adrian about his family. The room fell silent. Emily quickly tried changing the subject, but Adrian stopped her gently. Slowly, painfully, Adrian told them everything. He spoke about Claire's beautiful smile, Ethan's love for toy airplanes, and the terrible guilt that haunted him every day since losing them. Tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. And for the first time in 4 years, someone reached for his hand instead of avoiding his pain. It was Lily. The little girl squeezed his hand tightly and told him something so simple yet so powerful that it shattered the walls around his heart completely. She said his family would not want him to stay lonely forever. Adrian cried openly that night. Not the quiet hidden tears of a broken man alone in darkness, but honest human tears surrounded by people who truly cared whether he hurt or healed. That Christmas changed everything. Over the following months, Adrian became deeply involved in Emily and Lily's lives. He attended Lily's school performances, helped her with homework, and sometimes took both of them to parks, museums, or small restaurants around the city. The loneliness that once consumed him slowly transformed into something unfamiliar but beautiful. Hope. But life tested them again when Emily suddenly collapsed during work one evening. Exhaustion, stress, and untreated health issues had finally overwhelmed her body. Adrian rushed her to the hospital while Lily cried terrified in the back seat beside him. For hours, Adrian sat beside Lily in the waiting room remembering another hospital night years earlier when doctors told him his wife and son were gone. Fear returned violently. He realized then how deeply he cared about Emily and Lily. Losing them suddenly felt unimaginable. Thankfully, Emily recovered after several days of treatment, but doctors warned her clearly. She could not continue destroying herself through endless work and exhaustion. Adrian finally did something he had wanted to do for months. He offered Emily a position managing one of his company's community outreach programs. The work paid far better, offered stable hours, healthcare, and allowed her more time with Lily. This time, Emily accepted. Not because she needed saving, but because she finally trusted Adrian's intentions. Their bond deepened naturally after that. They spent weekends together exploring the city. Adrian slowly opened parts of himself he thought were permanently buried. Emily shared fears she had hidden for years about raising Lily alone and constantly feeling like life was one disaster away from collapse. Together, they helped each other heal. Yet Adrian still battled guilt privately. One night, he visited Claire and Ethan's graves alone. Snow covered the cemetery quietly while city lights glowed faintly in the distance. Adrian stood there for hours speaking softly into the cold night air. He apologized again for failing them. But this time, something felt different. Instead of endless punishment, he finally felt forgiveness beginning somewhere deep inside his heart. Because loving Emily and Lily no longer felt like betrayal. It felt like surviving. Months later, Adrian shocked his entire company by stepping away from several major business projects. For years, work had consumed every second of his existence. Now, he began prioritizing life beyond profits and meetings. Employees noticed changes immediately. The cold CEO who once terrified everyone started remembering birthdays, supporting struggling workers personally, and creating programs for employee families. People whispered constantly about what could have caused such dramatic transformation. Nobody guessed the answer was a tiny girl with crayons and a simple belief that nobody deserved loneliness. Spring eventually arrived. One warm evening, Adrian returned to the diner where everything began. The owner planned to close permanently due to financial problems, but Adrian secretly purchased the building weeks earlier to save it. He invited Emily and Lily there after closing time. The lights glowed softly around the empty diner while rain tapped gently against windows exactly like the first night Lily spoke to him. Adrian looked around quietly before thanking Lily for changing his life. The little girl smiled and asked if he was still lonely. Adrian looked toward Emily standing beside him. Then he answered honestly. No. Several months later, Adrian and Emily married during a small private ceremony attended only by close friends and family. There were no reporters, no giant headlines, and no luxury spectacle. Just genuine love between two wounded people who helped each other find light again. Lily proudly walked beside Adrian the entire day holding his hand tightly. For the first time in many years, Adrian felt peace. Not because pain disappeared completely. Claire and Ethan would always remain part of him. Some losses never fully heal. But Adrian finally understood something important. Love was not limited. The heart could break terribly and still somehow find room to love again. Years passed. The lonely CEO slowly became known for something far greater than business success. Adrian and Emily built shelters, family centers, and community programs across the city helping struggling parents and lonely children. Their mission was simple. No one should feel forgotten. And every year on Christmas Eve, Adrian returned with Emily and Lily to the same diner booth where a little girl once changed his life forever with a single sentence. Sometimes he would sit quietly watching snow fall outside the window while remembering how close he came to spending the rest of his life trapped inside grief. Then Lily, now older but still carrying the same warm heart, would smile at him across the table. And Adrian would silently thank God for one rainy night, one tiny diner, and one brave little girl who refused to let a stranger keep eating alone. Before this story ends, leave a comment below and tell us one thing: have you ever changed someone's life with a small act of kindness, or has someone changed yours? Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest words can save someone standing silently at the edge of hopelessness. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support more emotional stories like this. And tell us in the comments which country you are watching from so we can see how far this story has reached around the world.